to have my voice heard, that's for sure. A little bit of my experience, as her mom.
Have you ever noticed something interesting about Meghan Markle's wedding photos? While 600 guests packed Windsor Castle, one person sat completely alone, and this wasn't by accident. That image actually reveals a fascinating story about family circumstances and royal planning that most people missed. The woman sitting there wasn't just Meghan's mom. She was the only family representative after some challenging family situations. Smash that like. If you want the full story, subscribe for more royal insights. And hit the bell because we're about to explore what really happened before this wedding.
What if Meghan Markle's greatest scandal wasn't her clashes with the royal family, the public feuds, or even the relentless...
So picture this. May 19th, 2018, millions are glued to their screens watching Meghan Markle's fairy tale moment at Windsor Castle. But here's what most people had no clue about. Just 5 days before this massive royal event, everything got shifted around because of some photos that weren't quite what they seemed. Let me break down what actually happened. Thomas Markle, Meghan's dad, who everyone expected to walk her down the aisle, got involved in this whole photo arrangement that ended up creating some unexpected challenges.
Others claim she had once been deeply entangled with an older man whose identity has never been fully confirmed.
We're talking about coordinated shots of him doing everyday stuff, flipping through newspapers about the wedding, staying active to get ready, even trying on his formal attire. Sounds straightforward enough, right? Well, it got more complicated. The thing is, these weren't just random photographers catching him naturally. Thomas had actually worked with photographers to set up these moments. And when I say worked with them, we're talking about a significant arrangement. Sources say around $100,000.
It felt cruel, the way the world seemed unchanged while his own life tilted violently off axis. Behind him, Sophie.
Now, when the British press discovered these supposedly candid shots were actually coordinated, they covered it extensively. You can imagine how this affected the royal family's plans. They're managing the biggest wedding in years, every detail carefully organized, and suddenly there's this major story that needed to be addressed. This wasn't just some minor scheduling change. This was a situation that required them to completely adjust their ceremony plans. The outcome? Thomas decided to step back from walking Meghan down the aisle.
The Montecito sun rose gently over the sprawling Sussex estate, bathing the manicured lawns and high walls in soft golden.
And Prince Charles ended up stepping in partway through. Talk about significant last-minute adjustments. But honestly, this photo situation was just the first example of how complex things would become with the various family circumstances. So while Thomas was dealing with his whole photo situation, guess what else was happening? Meghan's half-siblings decided this was their moment to share their perspectives too. I'm talking about Samantha Markle and Thomas Jr., both kids from Thomas Sr.'s first marriage.
Doria Ragland, the usually serene and supportive mother of Meghan Markle, has made a decision that has left the dust.
And they had some things to express about not being included in the wedding festivities. Let's start with Samantha. She's a writer who uses a wheelchair because of her multiple sclerosis. And she basically went on this media tour sharing her side of the story. Her whole thing was that Meghan had really changed over the years. Success had created some distance between them, and suddenly the family connections just weren't the same anymore. She was doing interviews, talking about how different things had become.
Meghan Markle's half-sister definitely isn't half-hearted in her recent takedown of Meg's mom.
And she even ended up writing this whole book about the family experiences. That's some serious commitment to getting your story out there, right? Then there's Thomas Jr., and this guy took it to another level entirely. He literally wrote this open letter, and I mean it got published everywhere, where he's basically sharing his concerns with Prince Harry about the upcoming marriage. We're talking about some pretty direct words here, saying Harry might not fully understand all the family circumstances.
Doria confesses to police that Meg hides money that she stole from King Charles in Doria's scammy eldercare company.
This wasn't just sharing thoughts with friends over coffee. This was a full public statement. Here's the thing that really stands out, though. Both of these siblings genuinely felt like they'd been distanced from Meghan's world. They remembered growing up together, family holidays, all those shared memories, and then suddenly they're finding out about major life developments through Entertainment Tonight like the rest of us. From where they were sitting, it probably felt challenging to watch your sister's life unfold on TV rather than getting a personal update. Can you imagine being the palace staff trying to handle this?
The agency has been instructed not to tell the person that it's Harry and Meghan that they're potentially meeting with.
They're used to managing press about royal protocol and charity events, not family members doing detailed interviews about the bride. This was completely new territory for royal wedding planning. So here we are. Wedding day finally arrives, and after everything we've talked about with the family situations, there's Doria Ragland sitting in St. George's Chapel, representing Meghan's side. Picture this for a second. 600 guests packed into this absolutely gorgeous historic church. The entire royal family sitting across the aisle.
Meghan Markle added another royal first to her list on Thursday when she brought her mother, Doria Ragland, to her first royal hosting event.
And then there's Meghan's mom, just one woman representing her daughter's family. It's honestly one of those moments that just stands out when you see it. The whole scene was pretty remarkable to witness. On one side, you've got all these royals and their guests connecting and enjoying the atmosphere, the church filled with that excited energy you get at big celebrations. And then there's Doria, sitting so calmly and taking in this absolutely significant moment in her daughter's life. You can almost feel the importance of the occasion.
Something's seriously off about Prince Harry lately, and it's not just gossip. The guy who used to be the fun-loving, cheeky royal has turned into a
just watching her. But here's the thing that really stands out. This wasn't just how things worked out. This was actually a really thoughtful decision by everyone involved, with Thomas not being able to make it and the half-siblings not getting invites. After all their public statements, they decided to keep things focused and respectful. Instead of trying to coordinate with extended family or dealing with additional planning considerations, they went with what truly mattered. And can we just talk about how wonderfully Doria handled this whole situation? She's literally representing Meghan's entire family.
Viewers around the world were stunned by a resurfaced video showing Meghan Markle allegedly just hours from giving birth
At what's probably the most watched wedding of the decade. She knows every camera is going to be on her, every news outlet is going to be covering her reactions, everything. And she just sits there with this amazing composure the entire time. That's some impressive grace right there. What really stands out about this decision is how it perfectly shows what Meghan actually values. Instead of filling seats just because that's what people expect at weddings, she had the one person who's been her support through absolutely everything. Doria was there during the family changes when Meghan was a kid.
Hold on to your sun hats because Meghan Markle, the Duchess of Sussex, former Hollywood actress, mother of two, and one of the most
supporting her during those uncertain acting years. And now she's front and center for the biggest day of her daughter's life. The palace team clearly went all out to make sure Doria felt totally comfortable throughout the whole day. They had people specifically assigned to help her out, walked her through exactly what was going to happen during the ceremony, and basically provided excellent care and attention. Because at the end of the day, this wasn't just about logistics. This was about celebrating the woman who raised the bride.
Let's talk about one of the most unintentionally entertaining episodes of With Love, Meghan. Specifically the third one, where Tan French shows up.
That image of Doria just sitting there with such quiet strength ended up being one of those moments everyone remembers from the whole wedding. It really showed that sometimes having that one person who genuinely supports you means way more than having many people there just because it looks appropriate. All right, so let's jump ahead a few years because this family story definitely didn't end at the wedding. In 2022, Meghan comes out with what she's clearly excited to share,
This isn't a retirement party where someone is forced to acknowledge their own years of hard work. It's a brunch, supposedly.
Heritage discovery thing. She's on a podcast talking about how she took one of those DNA tests and found out she's 43% Nigerian. You can tell she's genuinely enthusiastic about this, going on about how meaningful this connection is and how it's helping her understand her roots better. At first, people were totally interested in it. I mean, we're talking about someone who's been super open about figuring out her mixed race identity her whole life. So discovering specific African heritage seemed...
This May will mark 6 years since Meghan Markle stunned in her wedding gown. But I'm actually not talking about this one. It was her...
like this really meaningful, personal moment. And she actually followed through on it too. Went to Nigeria in 2024 and had an amazing experience. The whole trip looked absolutely wonderful, and you could just see how much this connection meant to her. But then things got more complex. So Doria shows up on The Daily Show recently, right? And when they bring up Meghan's Nigerian heritage, she makes this comment that got people talking. She mentions that
Meghan Markle's engagement ring has captivated the world since 2017. But have you noticed its many changes along the years?
Wasn't sure where that 43% number came from. And you're thinking, this is Meghan's mom we're talking about here. People would naturally expect her to be familiar with the family background. Well, people had various reactions to this. Some started asking questions about whether Meghan understood her DNA results correctly, or maybe there was some confusion about how these tests actually work. You had some folks wondering about the accuracy, while other people were supporting her right to explore whatever the test indicated.
Do you know how big the difference was between Kate and Meghan's weddings? Kate walked into the church with everyone's blessings, while Meghan faced skepticism.
It turned into this broader conversation about heritage and identity. Here's the thing that's actually pretty interesting about all this. DNA testing is way more complex than most people realize. These companies are constantly updating their databases every time more people send in samples, which means your percentages can literally change over time. So what shows up as 43% Nigerian this year might get broken down into totally different regions or percentages next year as they get more data.
Do you know how big the gap was between Kate and Meghan's weddings? First, the venue. Kate got married at Westminster Abbey, the historic site.
It's totally possible that both Meghan and Doria are being completely accurate about what they understand. But you know how it is with public attention. Once people start questioning one thing, it kind of leads to more discussion. And for someone like Meghan, who's already been under this intense spotlight about race and belonging, having family members seem to have different perspectives on heritage claims in public, that's got to be challenging. The whole situation really shows you how complex it can be.
Why did Prince Harry marry a divorced Meghan? This woman deceived the whole world with 3 lies. As soon as Meghan Markle speaks, her lies come.
When you're famous and you want to share something personal, especially when it touches on something as important as race and identity in today's world. It's a really delicate balance to navigate. So here's where things get absolutely fascinating from a cultural standpoint. You've basically got these two completely different worlds coming together. On one side, you have the British royal family with their very specific way of handling family situations. And on the other side,
What did Meghan do before the wedding that left Kate in tears? Did you notice how exhausted Kate looked at Meghan's wedding? Her eyes seemed a bit...
You've got this very American approach to dealing with things. And honestly, watching these two styles try to work together was like watching a fascinating cultural interaction unfold. Let me break down how the royal family typically operates. These people have literally had centuries to figure out their approach for managing complex situations. We're talking about an institution that's navigated through some pretty significant historical moments. All kinds of royal marriages, family challenges.
Why couldn't Meghan appear with her hair down at the wedding like Kate? This is the real reason Meghan hated Elizabeth II. In the royal family,
public situations, you name it. Their whole approach is basically built around this idea of keep it dignified, keep it private, and handle everything discreetly. they've perfected this art of measured responses and diplomatic solutions that's kept them going through decades of different circumstances. But then here comes Meghan's American family into this very structured environment, and suddenly it's like someone just brought a completely different approach into the mix. American families, especially when they get into complex situations.
No one has noticed that the first thing Meghan Markle did after marrying into the royal family was to abandon her mother, Doria Ragland, who is
tend to be way more direct about everything. People express what they're thinking. They go on TV shows to share their perspectives. They write books. They post on social media regularly. It's just this totally different philosophy of let's get everything out in the open and address it directly. Can you imagine being the palace staff trying to navigate this? You've spent your entire career learning these super traditional diplomatic approaches to handling sensitive situations. And then suddenly you're dealing with Thomas Jr.
Most brides would be ecstatic at the thought of walking down the aisle wearing a diamond and platinum bandeau tiara handpicked by the
writing these public letters or Samantha scheduling television interviews. There's probably no training manual that covers what to do when family members start coordinating photo opportunities or making public statements about the bride. What's really interesting is how this cultural difference completely shaped the wedding planning process. The royal family's natural instinct is to manage every variable they possibly can, minimize any potential complications, and make sure everything goes exactly according to plan.
British royals' hilarious reaction to Meghan and Harry's wedding sermon during Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding.
So, when they're looking at family members who might share any thoughts with any reporter who asks, their solution was pretty logical from their perspective. Just keep it focused and limit their involvement. It might seem quite direct, but when you think about it from a planning standpoint, it actually makes total sense. Compare that to how American celebrity weddings usually handle complex family dynamics. Most of the time, you either get really good security to manage any challenging relatives.
A Suits co-star has revealed Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's wedding didn't smell as pretty as it looked.
Or you figure out creative ways to include everyone while addressing whatever situations might arise. But here's the thing. Royal weddings aren't just big family celebrations. These are literally international events that get broadcast to millions of people around the world. The considerations are just on a completely different level. The whole thing really showed just how different these two approaches to family situations actually are. The royal family is all about tradition, following established protocols.
And I said to her, I remember this very clearly, that this is about race. And May said, Mommy,
and maintaining your composure no matter what happens. Meanwhile, the American approach is more like express what you need to express. Get your perspective out there, and we'll figure out how to handle whatever happens next. Neither way is right or wrong. They're just completely different philosophies that work differently when you try to combine them. Okay, so let's dive into something that's absolutely fascinating, how social media and all this modern technology completely changed how this whole situation played out. We're not talking about royal coverage from back in the day.
Meghan Markle and Prince Harry's wedding appeared to be a flawless fairy tale. According to one royal insider, apparently Meghan did
where you had maybe a handful of newspapers controlling the story. We're living in this digital age where literally anyone with a phone can become a news source in seconds. Picture this, back in the day, if the royal family had some family situation they needed to handle, they'd chat with a few trusted media executives, put out one of those carefully worded official statements, and that's how the public got their information. The whole thing would get covered in this very organized way, and then everyone would move on.
One thing we learned early with Meghan, she has a remarkable influence. Remarkable. So when we
But nowadays, that approach gets much more challenging when family members can hop on social media at any hour and start sharing their thoughts. I can only imagine what the Palace Communications team was going through, trying to stay on top of all this. You've still got your traditional media wanting their proper press releases. That's the old school stuff they know how to handle. But then you've also got this digital world where one post can go from 0 to trending worldwide incredibly fast. Someone shares something interesting.
Check out this clip from Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's surprise appearance yesterday in California that is already going viral. Pay close attention.
It gets screenshotted, shared, discussed extensively, and suddenly the whole internet's talking about it. And here's where it gets really interesting. People online absolutely love analyzing famous figures. People started examining old photos, reviewing wedding footage, coming up with these detailed theories about what was happening behind palace doors. The royal family went from dealing with professional journalists who had established standards to navigating millions of people online who had lots of time and very active imaginations. What's really noteworthy is how this created this.
Meghan Markle has been accused of not curtsying to Queen Elizabeth at her wedding. All the royal brides curtsies to the monarch after their wedding.
Ongoing cycle of information sharing. Traditional news would report something, then social media would buzz with reactions and theories, which would then get covered by news again, creating more online discussion. And the cycle continued. The story just kept evolving every single day. Plus, we're living in this era where everyone gets to participate in media coverage. It's not just professional reporters covering royal stories anymore. You've got YouTubers, podcasters, social media creators, bloggers. Everyone has got a platform and perspective. The royal family's traditional approach of working with established media relationships became much less effective when absolutely anyone could join the conversation. The whole thing really showed how traditional information management strategies need to adapt in this digital world. You simply cannot manage the narrative when there are millions of people all contributing to it constantly. So here we are, years later, and it's honestly pretty fascinating to see how this whole wedding situation didn't just affect that one incredible day at Windsor. It actually ended up reshaping how the royal family.
Okay, I don't love Meghan, but this is clearly a tribute to the first Black royal bride to marry into a European.
Handles these kinds of situations going forward. We're talking about an institution that's literally built on hundreds of years of tradition, suddenly having to adapt to completely new types of circumstances. The biggest change you can see is in how they approach complex family situations now. Previously, the royal approach was basically find a way to include everybody, handle any matters behind the scenes, and present a unified family image. But after everything they went through with Thomas's situation,
own mother, Doria Ragland. Yes, you heard that right. The very woman who has stood by Meghan in silence for decades.
The half-siblings sharing their perspectives through media and all the social media discussions, the palace seems to have completely updated their approach. It's like they finally realized that sometimes being realistic about family circumstances actually works better than trying to maintain an ideal family image. You can totally see this shift happening in other royal events since then. They've gotten so much better at setting expectations ahead of time, being clear about attendance, and they're way more strategic about managing access when they anticipate additional considerations.
That sound like the kind of secret someone with Meghan's determination and drive might go to great lengths to hide. Because here's what makes
it's this much more practical, focused approach compared to the previous, we'll find a way to accommodate everyone mentality. The whole social media aspect has been a complete game changer for their communication strategy too. The royal family used to have solid control over timing and messaging, but now they've had to accept that stories are going to develop and spread rapidly, whether they're involved or not. So they've gotten way better at making sure their official communications are excellent, timely, and actually address whatever everyone's discussing online.
For a while. Meghan, she was very young, Harry. She thought this was the only way. The only way?
What's really noteworthy is how this has completely changed their approach to future people joining the family. There's definitely way more preparation happening up front now, really understanding the entire family situation, asking detailed questions about potential considerations, social media habits, family relationships, basically anything that could become a communication consideration. But honestly, the most significant change is how they're balancing authenticity with traditional image management.
See by the window as Archie and Lilibet's laughter echoed faintly down the hallways. It was in moments like this, he thought.
The previous approach was all about maintaining appearances and showing an ideal royal family. Now, they're way more comfortable with the fact that real families have complex situations, and sometimes it's more relatable and genuine to acknowledge that instead of presenting everything as always perfect. The whole wedding situation basically became this valuable learning opportunity in modern royal family management. It taught them that traditional approaches don't always work optimally anymore, and that sometimes the most effective approach is just being straightforward about complex circumstances.
Insiders described the Duchess collapsing into tears upon hearing of her mother's plan, reportedly pleading with Doria.
So there you have it, the real story behind one of the most watched royal weddings in history. And honestly, it's way more layered than most people realized at the time. What started as this simple question about why Doria was sitting alone turned into this absolutely fascinating deep dive into how modern families, traditional institutions, and our complex digital world all came together in one unforgettable moment. The truth is, this whole situation teaches us something really eye-opening about how we consume royal stories and follow public figures in general.
More like a fairy tale than it actually was. With the release of Harry and Meghan, Samantha is once again attempting.
We get so caught up in the beautiful ceremonial moments and those picture-perfect images that we totally miss the very human, very real family dynamics playing out behind all the tradition and protocol. Meghan's wedding wasn't just about this gorgeous ceremony or established royal procedures. It was about real people trying to navigate incredibly complex circumstances while the entire world was watching every single move. What's really noteworthy is how this one wedding basically encouraged an entire centuries-old institution
and a mum are frauds and grifters. This video is an excellent analysis that really points out the scamminess of the site and isn't
to completely reconsider everything about how they operate in today's world. The royal family got this valuable learning experience in modern reality. You can't handle family situations the same way you did back in the day. Social media changes absolutely everything, and sometimes being genuine about complexity actually connects with people way more than trying to maintain these ideal appearances. That can be hard to sustain. But here's what I think is the most important thing to remember. Behind all the headlines, all the online discussions,
would do anything that they wanted, but she's now sort of shut her case and gone.
And all the social media conversations, these are actual real people dealing with real family situations. Whether you're more understanding of Meghan's perspective, the palace's viewpoint, or you're just trying to figure it all out, this whole story is this perfect reminder that even the most elegant, high-profile events come with very human, very relatable family considerations. The royal wedding really showed us that in our super connected, fast-moving digital world, there's honestly no such thing as keeping family matters private when you're living in the public eye.
It was once considered a story of resilience and empowerment.
It's such a good cause. The book benefits those affected by the Grenfell.
Every single decision gets examined closely, every absence gets discussed extensively, and every family dynamic becomes part of this ongoing public conversation. And you know what? That might just be the most universal truth of all. That even when you've got all the tradition, all the ceremony, and centuries of history backing you up, at the end of the day, family relationships are complex for everyone. Thanks so much for joining me through this whole exploration. And if this deep dive into royal family dynamics was as interesting for you as it was for me, definitely hit that subscribe button and ring that notification bell because I'm always exploring stories like this Drop a comment down below and tell me what you're thinking. Do you think the royal family handled this situation well, or would you have approached things differently? I'll catch you in the next video, where we'll be diving into more stories that might surprise you.